of February. You flip that calendar tomorrow. Not only does it say Sunday, it will say March 1st, and then all of a sudden, opening day really is right around the corner. 3 weeks from Thursday is opening day for the Texas Rangers. So lots to get into here in the program today. We'll talk about the injury to Josh Young. We'll get a look about where the Rangers stand a little week or so into spring training play. Who has been impressive? Who is needing to step it up here a little bit. But before we get things rolling here today, let's bring in my friend Matt Hicks and let him get off on his way here for a great Saturday night and surprise. So, Hicksy, great talking with you again, my friend. It's been a while.
It's good to hear your voice, as always, my man.
Yours as well. And let's first of all talk about the game today. 7-6 victory, as you and Eric described. Jack Leiter, I think our eyes are upon him right now, and we're looking for him to take another step forward after the leap that he took last year. Today, it kind of seemed like the beginning of the game, like it was the Jack Leiter from a couple of years ago where he threw a lot of pitches. I think it was 7 pitches to the first batter, 10 pitches to Kyle Tucker. Only went an inning and a third today, got 4 outs through 45 pitches. What was your overall impressions of Jack Leiter this afternoon?
Well, that he just didn't have his usual command. His ability to, spot pitches where he wanted to spot them. And a few times the ball just kind of slipped out of his hands. So he just didn't look like his usual in-control self when we think about the Jack Leiter that we saw grow and mature during the season in 2025. So sort of consistently getting behind in the count, not necessarily falling behind ball one, but ended up throwing a lot of pitches. He threw 24 pitches in that first inning, and then over the second and third innings when he pitched with a little help in between from Jonathan Brand, he threw 21 more. So he threw 45 pitches here today, and 5 times, and he faced a total of, let's see if I get this right, he faced 5, 6, 7, 8, he faced 9 batters, and he got to ball 3 on 5 of the 9 and walked 2 of them. He walked 2 of those batters. So you don't normally see that kind of performance from Jack. As Eric mentioned late in the broadcast, we didn't see the cutter all that much, something that he's working on. And what he wants to do with that pitch is to be able not necessarily to use it as a swing and miss pitch, but to use it like a lot of guys use it, to just get off the barrel and perhaps to get some quicker outs. There were times last year when Jack would have these kind of pitch-heavy outings and perhaps struggle to make it through 5 innings. And if he got through 5, maybe he got 1 batter in the 6th to be able to get to his pitch count. So he'd like to be able to go deeper into ball games. And I think that, for a pretty good chunk of the season last year, he was able to be more efficient, but that efficiency didn't come through here today. But he's hoping that he can use that cutter to perhaps get some quicker outs and to also just be, another pitch in his arsenal to play off of, some pitches that were really good for him last year. His 4-seam fastball last year is a pitch that he threw about 40% of the time and held opponents to a batting average under 200 against that offering and a slugging percentage under 300. And his changeup, which, of course, he developed quite a bit in the offseason last year and during spring training last season, that kick change that he threw last year, he held opponents to a 186 batting average on that pitch. So, if you add in the cutter, which, for a lot of right-handed pitchers, they like to get in on lefties and just get some weak contact. If he can put all that together, we can see Jack take another big step forward here in 2026.
I think that's the thing I'm most looking forward to, because you look at his overall numbers last year, 29 starts, had a 3.86 ERA, but just a little over 150 innings, so averaging about 5 innings per start. And certainly we're now in an era where starters are not going, 7+. But if he could just bump that up to 1 more inning per start, if he could get that up to 6 innings per start, not only does that, improve your chances to win the ball game, it also, puts a little less tax on the Rangers bullpen moving forward.
Yeah, no question about it, because we don't know exactly how that bullpen is going to look. We're in a similar situation this year to where we were last spring training. Who exactly is going to comprise that 8-man bullpen coming out of spring training. And if Leiter can get deeper into ball games, I mean, that's going to help everything, right? It's going to help the bullpen. I think it's going to help the rest of the rotation. So, that's kind of like what we're looking for, and we just didn't see that here today from Jack.
Well, hopefully, work on some things in his bullpen session the next time out in 4 or 5 days. We'll see if we can see some improvements there. Yesterday, we saw Mackenzie Gore, the Rangers' big trade acquisition in the offseason. 3 shutout innings from him. What have been the early signs the Rangers are saying about Mackenzie Gore?
Well, a guy that, with the numbers that he posted last year with Washington, I made this comparison last weekend. The Rangers picked up Patrick Corbin late in spring training last year, and people looked at his numbers the previous season with the Nationals and said, ooh, this isn't going to be good. But the same sort of holds true for Mackenzie Gore. He's got a much better defense behind him when you're talking about the Texas Rangers compared to the Washington Nationals. And I think that those numbers are going to be even better. Just having communication with a couple of people I know that are close to Washington. Mackenzie Gore is a much better pitcher from a stuff standpoint than Patrick Corbin is. And at times, Gore is going to be a guy who can get a little bit out of the strike zone and might run himself into trouble with walks. But he's also the kind of guy that's got swing and miss stuff, and he's going to record some strikeouts. So just when you think about adding Gore to this rotation and how deep the rotation will be when a guy like Jack Leiter is your 4th starter, it just makes for some tough sledding for opposing hitters. When you think about having Nathan Eovaldi and Jacob deGrom at the top of the rotation, and then Gore, and then Leiter, and then who knows who's going to get that 5th spot. We've seen Kumar Rocker a couple of times. Jacob Latz is going to pitch in the ballgame tomorrow over in Peoria against Seattle. And, from what we saw from Latz last year, for me, I mean, he's a guy that I think can easily handle that number 5 spot in the rotation. And he believes he's going to get it. So looking forward to seeing him pitch tomorrow. But it is definitely a much deeper rotation with Mackenzie Gore filling out that 3 spot.
Yeah, I mean, it's great when you can go out with Jacob deGrom, Nathan Eovaldi, and then Mackenzie Gore. That's a really solid 3. And, of course, you can never have too many starters. You're not going to go through an entire season with just 5, 6 starters. Oftentimes, you're going to probably about, 10 or 11 different guys, start a ball game for the club. Hicksy, you brought up the bullpen. And, the bullpen is a thing that every season it really is such a crapshoot where one year a guy is great, the next year they're awful, then the next year they're great again. There's a lot of question marks inside this Rangers bullpen. Obviously, Garcia is back. You've got Chris Martin in the fold. Let's start from the back. Who do you think will close for this team?
I don't know who is going to open the season as the closer, and I'm not so sure that Skip Schumacher and Jordan Teagues have an idea that this particular individual is going to be a closer. You mentioned Martin. And you also mentioned Garcia. There's another guy I think that you have to throw into the mix in Alexis Diaz, who has had some experience closing in the past. And it could be one of those 3 guys. It could be a combination of those 3, not necessarily closer by committee, but depending upon the situation and who the hitters are going to be, Skip might like one of those 3 over the other when it comes to the 9th inning. So I think we're going to see a combination of things happen during the course of the season. More and more managers these days and pitching coaches, unless they have a bona fide, just lock them down closer kind of guy, if you've got guys that have strengths but also have some weaknesses, and you've got guys that can get the job done, maybe you do go with 2 guys, maybe you do go with 3 guys. There's a chance still that somebody emerges. If that one individual emerges, the guy who's had, I think, perhaps the most experience and is the elder statesman, it would be Chris Martin. But last year what we saw was from Chris was he had some injury issues wasn't. I think he was on the injured list maybe 3 times last year, maybe 4. I don't remember exactly. So he's got to stay healthy if he's going to hold that role down. But that's always the fun part of a season, right? And especially in a situation like this, you'd like to have one of the top closers in the game, but in lieu of that, you're going to have some guys that are going to be able to get the job done. I think I mentioned this last weekend. The Rangers had, a total of 26 or 27 guys pitch for them last year. So whoever the 13 are to open the season, on the opening day roster, we're probably going to have twice that many pitch during the course of the year. And who knows, there may be somebody that's not even in camp now that is going to end up at some point handling that role, or somebody that's in camp who could emerge. There's been, so much talk about, some guys that have minor league experience, some guys that, you think about a guy like, and I don't think it's going to happen this year, but some people think that perhaps in the not-too-distant future that a guy like a Kamar Rocker could be a guy who could close games out for you, a guy who's got really good stuff, who might not have to have 4 or 5 pitches, in a closing role like he would have in a starting role. So to me, it's a real fluid situation, not only in spring training, but even after the season gets started.
Yeah, bullpens are always, a question mark for a lot of teams. The Rangers are not alone in this boat in terms of trying to figure out roles for different guys. And oftentimes, it does get settled down once the season goes in, and the manager and the pitching coach give guys different opportunities, put them in different spots, and, see who thrives in that. Speaking of Skip Schumacher, what have been your early impressions of the new Rangers manager?
I tell you what, for a guy who's in his second managerial stint in the big leagues, he very much seems at ease in the role. Very comfortable relating to the media, very conversational. I think Eric and I are going to have a lot of fun doing the manager shows this year on RSN. Just a guy who enjoys talking baseball. He has a unique perspective because of the kind of player he was on a lot of the big league teams that he was on. He was oftentimes the 24th or the 25th player on the team. So his experiences during spring training of needing to perform well to be able to make the club, needing to always be at the ready if he was at the minor leagues and getting called up, I think that gives him a unique perspective on a lot of the guys that are here at spring training that are fighting for a spot, to appreciate what they're having to go through. There's some guys that are here at spring training that are just basically getting in shape and getting, regular season ready, and other guys that are fighting for jobs at the big league level. And I think Skip relates well to those particular players. But the fact that he's just so very much at ease in his interview settings, whether that's the mass interview with the media or just one-on-ones, is something that is standing out to me early on.
This is Rangers Hot Stove on 105.3 The Fan. I'm Mike Peasley in for Jared Sandler today, and we are talking with Matt Hicks. And Hicksy, we've now had a few games in. We have seen the ABS system, the automated ball strike system, in play. Initial thoughts on how it is working so far here in these spring training games?
Well, we're getting to see a lot of it.
Yes.
and right, we saw it with the first batter here today, Alex Call. Leading off the top half of the first. Both teams ran out of their challenges, the Dodgers by the 3rd inning and the Rangers by the 6th inning. But it's, it's obviously going to be a big part of the game this year. And Skip Schumacher addressed this with the media earlier today. He kind of wishes that they didn't have the limits on 2 challenges during spring training, because he'd like to see all of the guys just get used to the process, and they'll worry about strategic elements of when to challenge and when not to challenge during the regular season. But taking a look at the data from last year at AAA, it appears as though, and I wish they separated it out by position, but they've lumped the pitchers and the catchers together as fielders, and then the batters. The fielders have done better at getting calls overturned than the batters have. I want to say that the fielders last year at AAA were around 54%. The batters were right around 50%. I think the catchers have a much higher percentage than the pitchers do. And what we're seeing so far is that the catchers are issuing more challenges than pitchers are. But batters are kind of right there in terms of the number of times asking for a challenge. But I think as the regular season gets here and as it progresses, I think what you'll see are more challenges from catchers, certainly, than pitchers. And I don't think the hitters will be there in terms of the number of challenges. One of the things, and I mentioned this during the broadcast, I really think that with the new ABS system that essentially the strike zone is larger. We saw some calls today where whether or not the call was overturned or whether it was confirmed, strikes that, the baseball was just barely touching the perimeter of the strike zone. So what in the past, and of course a lot of major league umpires usually have had smaller strike zones than those umpires in the minor leagues. But with the ABS system, I think you're going to see a lot of times that a pitch that gets called a ball, a catcher will challenge, and on the ABS, 1% of the ball is in the strike zone, and so therefore it's going to be a strike. And so effectively, whatever the strike zone is for a batter, it becomes bigger because of the diameter of the baseball. So that takes it beyond the 17 inches. And for folks to remember, too, that plane that is shown on the two-dimensional vision on the outfield scoreboard, that plane is not the front edge of the plate. It's where the plate goes from 17 inches to the back point of the plate. So kind of like right on the middle of the plate. That's where that plane is, the rectangle indicating what the strike zone is going to be. So that's where it's judged. So, I mean, it's not much distance from the front of the plate to the middle of the plate. But I suppose technically you could have a pitch that doesn't hit the front edge in the zone but somehow clips the middle and therefore is a strike. So I think there are going to be more strikes. I think that's going to lead to more or quicker outs. And I think it's going to ultimately help the defense as opposed to the offense.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it is indeed utilized once we get into the regular season in about 3 weeks. But I do like how quick the results come back and whether or not it was a ball or a strike. So, Hicksy, thanks so much. Enjoy
You're very welcome,
enjoy your Saturday night in Surprise. Behave yourself. I know you can get into some trouble on a Saturday night in Surprise, all right?
I can definitely do that.
Be well, my friend. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
All right, there is Matt Hicks joining us from the ballpark there in Surprise as the Rangers defeat the Dodgers today by a score of 7-6. We need to take a quick break. When we come back, let's discuss the injury news that came down today. Not good news for Rangers third baseman Josh Young. We'll get into that next here on Rangers Hot Stove. 251, 14 homers, 61 RBIs, 684 OPS. He's a more talented player than that. We saw that in 2023. That's what the Rangers need to try to get back from Josh Young here in 2026. When it comes to Justin Foscue with the hamstring strain, we know about hammies, those things to take a little time as well. Justin Foscue, an interesting player for the Rangers, and exactly where they could utilize him, potentially as a DH, a backup second baseman to Josh Smith. Obviously with Cody Freeman being out for 4 to 6 weeks with the stress fracture in his back, Justin Foscue has that opportunity. If a day that a tough lefty is on the mound, Foscue could be in there over at second base. You could also see Ezekiel Duran, get some time over there at second base. They worked out Justin Foscue a few times at first base as well, maybe as a backup there to Jake Berger. So those were the two big injury notes that we got from Rangers camp today. Josh Young with the adductor strain, the grade 1 adductor strain, and Justin Foscue with the hamstring strain. So you start to look, and again, opening day, March 26th, Texas Rangers at the Philadelphia Phillies, Citizens Bank Ballpark. Talked about at the beginning of the show. You start to turn the calendar, goes to March, all of a sudden you look, it's like, oh, the 26th, that's not too far away. That's 20, 25, 26 days away. And you want to get off to a good start. You always want to get off to a good start. And the old adage is, you can't win a pennant in April, but you can lose it. If you look at the Rangers, what they have at the beginning portion of the schedule, it's not easy. They begin with the first 6 games on the road at Philadelphia, at Baltimore. Then they come home. They've got the home opener on April 3rd where they get to take on the Cincinnati Reds, a Reds team that's got a lot of offense, a team that, thinks that they can contend in the National League Central Division with the likes of, the Cubs and the Brewers. Then you've got the Seattle Mariners coming in for 3 after that. And then you go on the road, you got to go out to the defending champion Dodgers for 3. So Phillies, Orioles on the road, home against the Reds, home against the Mariners, at the Dodgers. Those are the Rangers' first 5 series to begin the season. So that's a very difficult schedule. Baltimore, looking for a bounce-back season. Philadelphia, really good in their ballpark. They certainly can hit. They'll throw some good arms at the Rangers the beginning portion of that season. Then the home opener against the Reds. And, of course, we know what Seattle did last year, coming so close to, getting to the World Series. We know about their pitching. We know about their hitting with Julio Rodriguez and the likes. And then, of course, the Dodgers, the back-to-back world champions, coming up after that. So it is a difficult challenge. So that's why these spring training games are important for the Rangers, just to try to get some continuity and make sure that, when the bell does ring on the 26th of March on that Thursday in Philadelphia, that they are ready to go, which, again, you look at your starting rotation, you'll have DeGrom, you'll have Eovaldi, and you'll have Mackenzie Gore. You feel good about those 3. Jack Leiter, got all the talent in the world. Just needed him to, make another step forward. Today was not a good day for him, but you never want to rely too much on spring training results, but just watching him throw here today, or rather listening to him throw today, as the game was not televised, the command wasn't there. 7 pitches to the first batter, 10 pitches to Kyle Tucker. He threw it 17 pitches, and it's like that's been the issue for him. To limit the pitch count and try to bring that back down. Today was unable to do that. So that's kind of where the Rangers are standing right now as we look ahead to the 2026 season. So I'm excited about the year. 2025 wasn't the best. 2024 wasn't the best. We all remember what happened, of course, what greatness was in 2023. But, Skip Schumacher here, I love the trade for Gore. I love that you've got 3 top-flight guys at the top of your starting rotation that you can go toe-to-toe with anybody else. Anybody else in Major League Baseball, you can go toe-to-toe with your top 3. And then, of course, it's just settling on the back end of the rotation with the likes of Leiter and Jake Latz, who we'll see pitch tomorrow, and Kumar Rocker. And, Jordan Montgomery, Rangers brought him back, and we'll see if he can get healthy for the second half of this season and, just kind of see exactly where this Rangers team can go. Again, the division isn't the toughest. Seattle, I think, will be the favorite after what they did last year, but the Astros, they're pretty thin. especially health-wise. You know, they need Altuve and Yordan Alvarez to be healthy, but, you know, they're a little thin. They lost Framber Valdez, and there's a spot in there for the Rangers to sneak in there. And, you know, can this team win 88 to 90 ball games, sneak in, maybe try to, you know, catch the Mariners? Can they catch a wild card? I think that's all on the table here for this club. But, again, that is a long ways away as we're just, a week or so into spring training games as the Rangers beat the Dodgers today 7-6, even up their spring training record at 5-5. So if the Rangers are to make the climb amongst the American League West standings, what needs to happen? I'll give you some of my thoughts about that next as Rangers Hot Stove continues here on 105.3 The Fan.
Good news.
with us here on 105.3 The Fan. I'm Mike Peasley here on Rangers Hot Stove. Got one more segment to go here in the program, and want to remind you that the Rangers home opener April 3rd against the Cincinnati Reds in 2026 single game tickets are now on sale. Now is the time to get the best seats, the best prices, all for the best games. You can buy your tickets at rangers.com/single game. Gosh, I'm getting excited for baseball. It's baseball weather today here in DFW, isn't it? 80s? Gosh, dang. Felt like a great day to be out of the ballpark, enjoying a cold one with the roof open, the home team winning, dot race, Chuck Morgan's voice. How great was it, by the way, speaking of voices, hearing Eric back again today. Eric and Matt, the voices of summer. 47th year for Eric Nadel. The man just keeps going. How lucky are we as a Rangers fan to be able to have one of the best all-time to do it, to do our team. It's great. Great hearing Eric's voice again here today. He and Matt Hicks as well. Appreciate Hicksy joining me earlier in the program. So, he teased going into the break, what areas am I looking at for the Rangers to try to get back atop the American League West, to get back atop the American League, to get back to the World Series. 2023. It's only 3 years ago. Seems longer than that, doesn't it? Seems longer than that. One thing I think I need to see, we talked about Mackenzie Gore. Can we get a full season out of him? You look at last year, he was an all-star in the first half of the season with the Nats. First half of the season, he had a 3.02 ERA. Second half of the season, 11 starts, the ERA was 6.75. There were some injury issues in there as well, I understand. But they need a full season out of him. Wyatt Langford, can he take the next step? And I think that's the big thing coming into this season. We've gotten a taste of Wyatt Langford now the last 2 or 3 years. Is this the year that he breaks out and becomes an absolute superstar in the American League? If that happens, watch out. Again, last year, 241 hitter, 22 bombs, 62 RBIs. Is this the year that, that boosts up to, 30 homers and 95 RBIs and, the OPS goes above, 850? He's got all the tools, folks. He's got all the tools in the world to do it. Really looking forward to the season that Wyatt Langford has upcoming here in 2026. Another thing for the Rangers to move back atop. Can Corey Seager be healthy? Last year, limited to just 102 games. In those 102 games, he hit 271 with 21 bombs, 50 RBIs, and an OPS of 860. Can you get 140, 145 games out of Corey Seager here in 2026? If you can get that kind of production that we saw from Corey Seager last year over a longer stretch of games, you've got something, especially if Wyatt Langford is going to take the next step moving forward. Can the Rangers get bounce-back years from Jock Peterson and Jake Berger? Jock Peterson, last year, we know how slow of a start he got. And, man, that was a painful start. For a while there, he was barely hitting above 100. Ended up the season, hitting 181 with 9 homers and 26 RBIs. They need more out of Jock Peterson, especially against those tough right-handed hitters. Jock Peterson needs to hit those right-handed pitchers. As a lefty, that's going to be his opportunity. That's going to be his role. Jake Berger, 103 games last year, hit 236 with 16 homers, 53 knocked in. Can Jake Berger be a 25 home run hitter this year? And last but not least, for the Rangers to get back atop the AL West and atop the American League, the bullpen makeup. Talked about this with Hicksy. There are a lot of question marks inside that Rangers bullpen. Who's going to close? Who's going to be the top setup man? Jacob Webb is gone. Hobie Milner is gone. There's a lot of new faces in that Rangers bullpen. You bring in Alexis Diaz, former closer of the Cincinnati Reds. You've got Garcia. Got the veteran Chris Martin. Can somebody step up and be the guy to shut down a game in the ninth inning? More importantly, is there a guy that can come in there and shut down the game in the eighth inning? because sometimes the opposing team will have their top hitters batting in the 8th inning, and you got the bottom part of the order in the 9th, and the 8th inning becomes the most important. Do you have that guy that can go out there and get you 3 outs in the 8th? Can you get the guys in the 7th inning? Do you got a lefty in your bullpen that can get out a tough left-handed hitter in a tough situation? 2nd and 3rd, 1 out, protecting a 1-run lead. Can you get that strikeout from that bullpen guy? Those are question marks that need to be answered for this Rangers team if they are to get into playoff contention, get back atop the AL West, and get back atop the American League. And, of course, health for everybody. Jacob deGrom, obviously, Nathan Eovaldi, those 2 guys, they're not spring chickens anymore. They're getting up there in age. Can you get 28 starts from them? 28 to 30 starts from them? If you get 30, it'd be great, because that means they're pitching every 5 days, and they're not missing anything. 30 might be a little too much, but can you get 25 to 28 starts from those 2 guys? Because when they are out there, they are that good, especially Jacob deGrom, now a year further removed from another, Tommy John surgery. He is a legitimate number 1. He is a legitimate ace. Nathan Eovaldi, maybe as good of a big-time pitcher as there is. When the stakes are at their highest, Nathan Eovaldi typically is at his best. And then you go the same with Mackenzie Gore as well. I love Mackenzie Gore as the number 3 starter. He was the number 1 in Washington. He's this team's number 3 starter here in Arlington. And Skip Schumacher, the new manager. What kind of, feel will he have for this team early on? We talked about the tough early season schedule. How will Skip Schumacher fit in to this entire mix, into this entire organization to try to get the Rangers over the top, ahead of the Mariners, ahead of the Astros? The Angels, they're going to be the Angels. Sacramento, the A's. The A's will be a little bit better. I like the A's lineup, but I don't think they have the pitching to do it. So that's going to do it for Rangers Hot Stove Reminder. Tomorrow we got Rangers-Mariners first pitch coming up at 2 o'clock. I'm Mike Peasley. Thanks for listening. Have a great night.
The more time you give, the more our Crush